Hey, everybody. It's Jeremy from jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or if you're digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.com and search for Jeremy. I normally have a redirect set up on this URL, amazon.jeremy.net. It's broken at the moment because I'm doing some behind-the-scenes changes on my website, but hopefully that will be corrected in the next day or two. But regardless, if you just go to Amazon, type in my name, I think I'm probably the only comic creator that spells Jeremy with it. Well, there might be other comic creators out there that spell Jeremy with a G. But I'll be the only one that will have a supernatural Western about Lucifer's fall from heaven on there. So anyway, we are continuing with work in progress on the cover for my next comic book. Let's see. I see James is in the chat. He says, I'm here. Just want to stop by before brunch. Well, thanks for making time to pop in. I hope that you have a wonderful brunch today and get something yummy. I just had plain old oatmeal for breakfast. Wow, breaking stuff in here. Just plain old oatmeal for breakfast. A little oatmeal and tea and trying to keep it simple. Trying to eat healthier, live healthier, do healthier stuff. So I have not touched this piece at all in about 3 weeks because I've been slammed with work and slammed with a bunch of personal stuff. And it is nice to get back to just hanging out and working on the comic. So yeah, let me just get in here, check where I am layers wise. Because I think this is a random, yeah, there's just a random stray mark on here. All right, yeah, let's just continue with this. And I wonder whether I should put her and the creature on separate layers. You know what? It won't hurt anything to put them on separate layers for now. And then if I decide that I need to merge them later or I'm running short on layers, I can always pull them back together. Trying to decide whether I actually need to come in here and do any structural drawing the way I did with the figure. I'm kind of looking at this and thinking, well, I could just get in here and just start doing digital inks on this. Let's see here. Herman is in the chat. Says, what's good, G? Hope all is well. Still working on the piece, I see. Yeah, I have not had any time to do any personal artwork over the past 3 weeks, with the exception of going to figure drawing class. And honestly, the figure drawing class, a lot of stuff I drew did not even come out that well. It was more one of those, work has been busy, life has been busy, and it's sort of like I needed going and sitting in front of the model and just working as sort of a little bit of mental health break or reprieve. So I have not had time to make any progress on this, which it bugs me only in the sense that I would like to, honestly be working on a new piece every week. Like to be able to show up at the stream and say, all right, now I'm on this page, now I'm on that page. Getting a page a week done would be nice. Whereas I'm working on one cover and I'm, haven't had a chance to touch it in a month. I think it definitely is going to make more sense to have this on a separate layer, because as I'm looking at this now, I'm realizing that I'm probably going to want to do a color hold on the entire thing. And as opposed to the whole figure being black, I'm going to want this thing being probably like a dark, dark blue. Let's see here. So James says in the chat, I'm wondering about something. How do you balance art you do for work and art you do personally? I'm asking this because I have a potential creative job coming up, which could lead me to drawing more in my free time. I remember when I was in school, there were times when I spent so much time in front of computers, I didn't feel like using the computer when I got home. That is a really, really good question. And I feel like there is no one person fits all answer for that, because a lot of that is wholly dependent on your individual personality and the type of work that you're being asked to do. Because if the gig that you're being asked to do is very similar to the type of work that you create personally, then there really is very little conflict. When it comes to the idea of just being burnt out after being in front of the computer all day, you could be burnt out being in front of the computer all day, whether you're doing artwork or not. You could be having just a plain old office job that has nothing to do with making artwork, and you still are just like, you know what? I am wiped. The last thing I want is to do anything, and you just want to veg out. I guess the best answer that I can give, or at least the way that I tend to navigate it, is I try to find things that I enjoy about I try to find things that I find personally gratifying in the work that I'm doing for others. Because for the most part, I'm not getting, my day job is not making horror comics or fantasy comics. It's a lot of graphic design. Sometimes it's concept sketches, but even the concept sketches are less about making something that's cool looking and more sort of a sort of trying to find ways to communicate complicated ideas and break them down. It's a lot more of artwork for description and communication than it is making pretty or attractive things. I don't know if I've really given you a really good answer on that. It's a tough question. Let me see here. I'm going to go through a couple more of the comments, and I'm going to ponder on that, James. And I'll try not to go too far, because I know you said you got to take off for brunch. But let me just see what everyone else says and see if that jogs anything in my mind. So I don't think I've got a good answer for this one. Plus, I'm a little bit out of sorts. Just my entire rhythm has been off. Oddly enough, because of day job work, I have been very, very distracted creatively. I'm out of sort of my creative flow and creative rhythm. I guess the main thing I would say, just in response to that and seeing how that's affecting me in this moment, I would say try to protect a little bit of time in your schedule for personal work. Like, even though I have work waiting for me right now, I said, let me get on the live stream and spend at least an hour, working on my comic, making a little bit of progress. I made time over the week to go to a figure drawing workshop, even though I have like a lot of other things that I need to be doing. So the main thing I would say is try to find time, try to protect the time that you still do, at least to give yourself a little bit of time during the week. You may not even be able to touch your personal work every day, but give yourself time to touch your personal work at least once a week. And in addition to that, if you can find ways to incorporate things you really enjoy. For instance, when I'm doing day job work and I have an opportunity to do thumbnails, I find thumbnails very, very gratifying. If there's ways for you to work traditionally or work in a medium, whether it's your favorite drawing app or whether it's drawing in marker or pencil or ink, if you can find ways to work in the tools that you really enjoy using into that paying work, then sometimes just the act of doing the things that are familiar and bring you comfort can be very helpful as well. All right, let me take a look at some of the comments. Let's see here. And if you've got a follow-up, James, please definitely ask. Because I still feel like I kind of whiffed that one. I'm trying to get my mojo back here. I've definitely been out of sorts lately. Herman says, I like how you started to ink for your beast, very painterly instead of straight tracing lines. Well, you know, it's first off, thank you. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I generally try to, I guess I would say under pencil, or yeah, I kind of try to under pencil because, okay, that's what I was looking for. I've got this whole creature that I sketched out here and I'm like, I thought I had a dope ass sketch of this guy. Here it is. All right. So in this case, I think I actually prefer this. Yeah, this works for me way better than what I was just drawing. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete these lines that I started making. I know that that's kind of messed up. You were just telling me that you really liked how I started the drawing. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm going to get rid of this. But I was trying to look in here because I thought that I had marked out where the rat's ears were. And I had really done a better job of making him look like a rat. And somehow I started inking without finding this layer. This sketch really communicates what I want the panel, the frame to be. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to duplicate this layer and then just do cleanup on it. I don't think I'm even going to redraw it. I'm just going to sort of clean it up. I'm trying to make space for me to do rougher, looser, like quote unquote finished pieces, but just looser. Well, then again, I guess this isn't really, you did say that you liked that it was painterly. So even though I'm ditching that one, I think I'm ditching it for something that's even looser. So hopefully this pushes even more in the direction that you were feeling. And I see Paul Pate is in the chat. He says, hi, kids. Good looking drawing. Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much, sir. I'm happy with how this piece is coming out. Now that I found this sketch, the main thing was I started sketching that in. I realized that the silhouette of the head didn't feel like a rat. And I want this creature to feel like a rat because it's supposed to be a embodiment of disease and pestilence. So I want it to be like a rat with all of these eyes. Like it has sores all over it, but the sores are also eyes. It's sort of like this weird, creepy, disgusting creature. And this feels a lot more like what I want, as opposed to, you can see lightly in here underneath the previous rough sketch I had. Oh, wait, I don't even need to do that because I have this on the top layer. I have it on full opacity, so I don't have to keep sliding the opacity up and down. I can just turn on my thumbnail and turn it off. So, you know, this was the rough thumbnail. And then here is this more informed drawing that I am about to duplicate so that I can just refine it. And I'm wondering whether I want to change it to black. I'm gonna have to think on this for a minute. Let me keep looking at the chat here while I go through. Yeah, James mentioned burnout is a concern, which yes, very true. I think that, I mean, in anything in life, the challenge of being able to stay motivated and keep working. I guess what I'm trying to say is I've seen people suffering burnout that were not at all in creative or artistic careers, but still the day-to-day chaos of life and the world can create can create burnout. So Herman says, "Are you okay going over the same lines while inking? I've seen artists while doing digital go over and over and over. In animation, your lines have to be consistent to prevent shakiness." Um, I am not even remotely consistent with my lines. There are some people who can be very exacting and make sure that if they're doing cleanup, everything is perfect and right where it needs to be. I am super rough and super loose and super sketchy, and I'm not precise about that at all. And I don't say that like it's a badge of honor. Um, I have had to make peace with the fact that I am a very loose and rough artist. And I think I'm in a phase in my life where I'm trying to find ways to embrace what I do naturally, which is basically how to make the loose sketchiness work for me as opposed to against me. How to make the loose sketchiness feel finished and intentional. Because, the figure work in here, I feel like it's pretty clean and, pretty clean, pretty crisp. And this is, I think, in response to years of drawing loose and sloppy and trying to find a way to basically trying to learn how to be a tighter artist and to do things where I'm not just faking it in the sense that I'm just scribbling stuff in and indicating as opposed to actually really drawing and describing. um And I think after years of doing that, what I found is I have gotten cleaner, but at the expense of some of the energy of the work. And now I'm trying to lean back into getting the energy. So it's not something that I feel like I've completely resolved yet. And here's an interesting thing. I'm starting to feel more and more like all of the art advice and all of the classes and all the things that we do to try and learn, at a certain degree, all of it has to start just be taken as suggestion, because the creative process is so idiosyncratic. It's so specific to the individual in terms of what does work and doesn't work, that there are fundamentals and there are best practices of picture making and visual storytelling. But how you get to a result that is pleasing to you and your viewer is an extremely individualistic process. And the biggest advice I can give to anyone is try as many approaches as possible. And when you find one that works, dig down into it. Continue to look for ways to refine it. So you're not just like, oh, okay, I guess this is my workflow. You want to continue to grow and evolve. But to a certain degree, only so much of the advice that anyone gives you, advice is only as helpful to you as it is when you put it into practice. Because there can be 10 different ways to approach, inking, breaking down the figure, spotting blacks. If we were talking specifically about comic book things, comic book, part of the comic book process, there can be multiple processes for doing it. And It may well be that out of like the 10 different processes, 5 of them just don't agree with the way you think at all. 3 of them are like, oh, I can kind of work like this. And 1 or 2 might be like, oh, these are my go-to golden like ways to get work done quickly and efficiently, but I enjoy it and it looks like something that I am proud of. But the thing is, those 1 or 2 things are going to be different for every person. That's the really messed up thing. They're going to be different for everybody. And you're going to have to, the only way to find out what's going to work for you is for you to go out there and make stuff. So it's crazy, but that's, the more I work, the more I'm like, yeah, you just got to try all this stuff. And there's no right answer. The answer is what gives you the results that you want. Let's see here. Paul says, talking about burnout, he says, that's me lately. Day job is draining me. And see, it's a funny thing. I don't find it's not that my day job itself is draining so much as it is that it's not leaving me time to do the things that are fulfilling. And I say that they're very, very similar. The distinction is that when I'm doing the day job work, I'm not sitting there like, oh God, this is soul crushing. A lot of times I'll be doing the day job. I'm like, this is interesting. There's some fun challenges here. And I might get bored and tired at some point. And then I'll hit an interesting pocket of a project and I'll really get into it. And all of a sudden I'll look up and like a couple of hours have gone by. I'm like, oh, the day is already over. And I'm almost like, ooh, I want to work like day job work. I want to work for like just 1 more hour just to wrap this up because I think I can bring this to a really interesting place. But at the end, the day still hasn't left as much time for doing rejuvenating things, getting as much sleep as I want, getting as much exercise as I want, getting enough time to do personal artwork, getting enough time to work on a comic, as well as having time to just do figure studies for figure studies' sake. Hell, I haven't had time to fix my broken redirect on my website to my Amazon store. There's all of these little things. And that's, feeling that you don't have time to do stuff is different from feeling like it's crushing your soul and burning you out. So that's the distinction that I want to make. But the results can still be similar in that you find that you're not operating at peak efficiency because you're stretched too thin. Let's see here. And Paul says, that's a cool looking beast. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm liking how this guy's coming out. Herman says, word, I feel you. My only job is draining me. I work a late shift while trying to do daytime stuff, and it's not getting well as I get older. I need sleep. I'm tired now. Man, if you're really, really sleepy, I'm like, go catch some Z's and watch the replay. Sleep, the older I get, I value sleep, I think, almost more than anything else. It's so hard to do anything else in life when you feel physically drained, when you're not getting enough sleep, when you're not getting proper nutrition, when you're not getting enough exercise. Like all of those things cause me to really not function well. And I've learned that, just for my family, I need to take better care of myself so that I can be a properly functioning member of my family. Otherwise, I'm cranky, I'm tired, I'm non-functional. And when it comes to the sleep thing, eventually I just start going to bed early. Which I think, that's a good thing to do if you're not getting enough sleep. But it's like I will get to a point where, and I try to not get to that, but I'll just be like, I will finish work, I will have dinner, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed at like 8:00. That happens when I have too many days in a row where I'm up late and burning the candle at both ends in the middle. Yeah, I feel like sleep is one of those where it'll kill you if you don't get enough. So I take that very seriously. I say definitely get as much rest as you can. Let's see here. James said that sounds good. Paul says, Herman, I think you and I are the same age, but I find I have less and less energy, but I'm more focused as I get older. It's a give and take. Um, you know, that is a very interesting that's an interesting point, Paul. I think that for me, I had been somebody who was very, very focused and capable of more and more focus as I got older and older. Like, I mean, I worry the part of the reason why I think about wanting to get stuff done faster is because I'm worried that you guys watching are going to get bored with me drawing the same illustration for like weeks and months at a time. In terms of my own personal concentration, I could work on this one illustration until it's done, period. Like if it takes me 3 months and that's just how long it took if no one rushed me, I would show up every week and I would just work on this one illustration every week for 3 months. Um, to a certain degree, I do feel like I'm cognizant of the fact that being on social media, to a certain degree, you're kind of an entertainer. But I mean, I think it's different because we've kind of cultivated this space as a group for just encouraging each other no matter what we're working on. So I think, you guys definitely are like, hey, take as long as you need to take. But I do still sometimes think about in terms of the growth of being online. And, I try not to look at subscriber counts and that sort of thing. But believe me, I'm not getting any one of those YouTube plaques anytime soon. And I think that part of that is me making the decision to prioritize what I want to create and how I want to create it versus creating for the algorithm. So let's see here. Paul says, that's awesome. Very dramatic. The size difference between the rat and the girl. Well, good. Thank you. That is definitely what I was hoping for. Let's see here. Oh, and Herman says, it's my issue trying to regain focus. This is once I joined LGFC, Lifting Grown Folk Crew, or Lifing Grown Folk Crew. It says, I'm finding it a little harder and also needing more sleep. It's like, yeah. That's what I was going to say. So my focus is kind of at an all-time low right now. And the reason for that is because my attention is very fragmented at this moment. In addition to work, I mentioned that I was going to be moving, but there's the place we're going to be moving into. There's going to be some repairs done and trying to get those scheduled and get stuff done in time before we need to move out of our current place. That takes up a lot of mental bandwidth. I had mentioned before that there were some health issues that my family was dealing with besides just me. My wife, there's some serious family medical issues that her family's been dealing with lately. And it's like, we're definitely doing all we can to support each other, but both of us we have days when we look at each other and just like, when is this shit gonna stop? The world is just relentless and we just want to chill. So I think that having work issues along with, not work issues, but having a very busy work schedule along with planning for a move, family health issues, it feels like having my attention fractured in these multiple ways has been a challenge. And yeah, because of these challenges, my focus is not what it normally would be or what I would like it to be. So I think that I was I would say maybe a couple of years ago, I was where Paul was at, where, I don't have necessarily as much energy, but I can be super focused. And now I'm at a place where I'm running from one thing to another. And now my focus is sort of diminishing. And honestly, I feel like it's going to take getting through the rest of this year before my focus gets back to where it used to be. And I took on an opportunity that I don't regret because I haven't started it yet and I haven't done it. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm going to be teaching for the first time in person in September. And I was super excited because, I've done, sharing my process online, and I've done drawovers and help people with their individual work and illustration, but I haven't actually worked as a teacher at an art institution. So, and it's just going to be like a one-day workshop for now, but I also have like another demo scheduled for later in the year. And I honestly just feel like I am glad that I'm doing it. I'm not going to cancel on it, but I'm like, I wish that I was doing this a year from now as opposed to doing it now, just so I had the breathing space to get through what we're going through. But it's like life keeps lifing. All right, that's enough of me whining and bitching and moaning. Let me come back here and get into the chat. I see Omar is here. He says, "Hey, Jeremy, it's been a long time. It has been. It's been a hot minute. Good to see you, Omar. Welcome back." Let's see here. All right. What else is going on in the chat? Oh, Paul says, "I thought I'd write my next book back in January, February. I still haven't written it, although I did push through, and now I'm on page 110 out of 200. Oh, well, I mean, I thought that I'd be working on my next comic. I thought I would have I thought I would have been done with the whole series by now. I finished Morningstar in 2019. I think I put out the trade in 2021 or 2022. And I had intended to have the entire series done, and like the entire series written, the next series, this series right now. The thing I'm working on the cover for. I intended to have this whole thing written, honestly, before I was going to be ready to. I wanted to have it written before completing Morningstar. And I felt like Morningstar. I've told you this story before. I felt like I was taking so long with Morningstar that I needed to wrap it up. So I put all of my attention towards finishing Morningstar and didn't really work on writing the new thing. And now I've been writing and rewriting. And I don't know if you get this, Paul, but the perfectionist thing for me is that I haven't written a ton of stuff, but I've written enough to know when something is working and is good versus, what I think it's good writing versus bad writing. And now it's like everything I write, I'm like, I just feel like most of it's not, to me, is not up to my personal level of what I feel I want the quality of my writing to be. Like, I can accept letting go perfectionism wise of my artwork and just saying, here's the artist I am now. I may not make everything perfect anymore, but I'm not struggle to make things perfect anymore. But it's like, I can draw well enough to tell the stories I want to tell. And now that I'm shifting my energy towards trying to tell better stories, it's like I'm starting the cycle all over again. And I think what I really need to do is just remember that and give myself permission to write poorly. We'll see. I mean, I still feel so much like I am an infant novice writer. Like 3 graphic novels does not a established author make. I feel like I probably need to write like 10 of these before I have a good solid chunk on how to really tell a story, like how to really manipulate the story in the sense that if a drawing is not working, if a visual image is not working, I can usually both identify why it's not working and come up with practical solutions to get it to where I want it to be. And I have not built that skill set with writing yet. And that's what I mean when I just say I just need to put the time in and do it over and over again until I develop those same muscles for writing. And I'm trying to decide. I don't want to erase. Maybe I'll just mask out the part of her that's behind the tail, because I'm going to want to color underneath all of this. And I'm going to need her to be transparent behind. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, we're all on the same page. You know, Paul's talking about the life and grown folk crew being a reluctant member. Herman says, "I know being stretched too thin." Yeah, we've been talking about it, man. I know, and I appreciate you sharing what you've been going through with me too. I mean, here's the thing. On one hand, it's sort of like, it is comforting to know that a lot of us as older creatives that are still kind of doing the personal grind, like we're not making the thing that we want to make as our living, but we're still trying to get creative work out there. It's comforting to have allies in arms knowing that we're going through this. But at the same time, while it gives me comfort, I don't want it like I'm the type of person who I genuinely want the best for my friends. So like, even if I'm going through a rough time, in a way, like I almost like, I feel guilty about it, feeling like I have comrades in arms, because I'm really like, I don't want you to suffer. I want you to thrive. I want to be the only person I know who's having a shitty time, which I don't know if that's like a martyr complex or what, but it's just the idea of, you know, I like seeing other people that are independent artists that are thriving and able to do the stuff that I'm not able to do yet. And then I can look at that and say, that's the North Star. That's what I'm chasing. That's what I want to get to. And I'm happy to hear about the people that are making it. But by the same token, when people are real with me and they're like, yeah, there's still a lot of struggle, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's always going to be struggle. Making art should not be this damn hard. It just shouldn't be. And when I say hard, I don't mean like the drawing, the act of, I will tell you, the act of sitting down here and making this is the least difficult thing of all. Getting enough sleep and finding time management and sleep are the two hardest things about being an artist. Or let's say health management. Health management and time management are the two hardest things about being an artist, because I think that so many things about being an artist involve us living unhealthy lifestyles. You know, it encourages, you have to sit in one place for long periods of time. So it's the sedentary lifestyle. There's the not getting enough sleep. All of these things. And right now I'm doing some weird stuff with the rat's nostrils that I don't even know. Like, I don't think that this even makes sense. I'm just doing it because I think it looks cool. I'll come back to the chat in a minute. I'm actually thinking it for the moment. And actually, I realized I kind of did this wrong, because if anything, the nose should not be black. The nose should be sort of like, I don't know, like rats have pink fleshy noses. Yeah, let me just undo this. I think I kind of, I think I want to make the skin around it dark, his, like the fur around his nose dark, and I don't want to make the nose blacked in like a black. It's more like a dog's nose the way I drew it, and a rat's nose should be pink and fleshy. Like it should anything, it should feel like an extension of his gums. I think that would be even weirder, like scabby and kind of like a not quite pink, but like a muddy brownish, like unhealthy gums. That's what I want to make his nose feel like. Paul says, I used to operate on little sleep when I was young. I regret that. I wish I would have chosen quality waking hours instead of quantity. Now, see, here's an interesting thing. I did not choose to work unlimited sleep. I had insomnia for most of my life. It has only been like in the past decade that I've been able to sleep it with like kind of a normal, regular schedule. It used to be just I no matter what, I had too many ideas. I couldn't relax. I was up all, I would lay in bed. I'd try to go to bed at a reasonable hour. And after laying in bed for, I don't know, tossing and turning for my whole rule was if I tossed and turned for 45 minutes or more, I would just get up and either read or find something to do, because it just didn't seem like it made any sense to force myself to keep laying in bed. Well, let's talk about sleep, and now I'm yawning. It just didn't seem like it was productive trying to force myself to sleep. Whereas now I can lay in bed, and if I make myself comfortable, I'm like, oh, I'll just stay here. Whether I'm asleep or not, I'm just happy to be in a warm, comfortable spot. But yeah, I don't think I chose to burn the candle at both ends. A lot of times it was that I knew myself well enough that I was like, I'm not going to fall asleep right now, so I might as well just keep going until I feel at least a little bit tired. And sometimes that little bit tired feeling wouldn't come until 2 a.m. And then I'd be wrecked the next day, and I'd be there like, I'd be sitting there at the drawing table at midnight saying, I know I should go to bed. I know tomorrow's going to suck, but I'm not sleepy, and I'm just going to toss and turn. So, that's changed in me in terms of getting older. Is now I really will just go to sleep. Yeah. Herman says, sometimes you got to push through, and that's not great. I've been trying to be an advocate for proper rest and proper sleep. Yeah, I mean, well, again, I was talking before about being a health advocate as opposed to just sleep, but, health, diet, exercise, because that was one of the things I found was not getting enough exercise was one of the prime culprits of me not being able to sleep. But then trying to get enough exercise becomes just one more thing on your list of shit to do. It's tough. And then, for me, it was always trying to find a form of exercise that I really enjoy, because I didn't want it to be a chore. I wanted it to be something like, for instance, I used to, when I was multiple times in my life, I have biked to work. There's a point when I used to live in Southern California, and I lived in a town called Alhambra, which is just below Pasadena. And I used to bike to fortunately, the place I worked in Pasadena, they had a shower at the office. And so I could just bike from Alhambra. From Alhambra to Pasadena is a good, I think the bike ride was something like 8 miles. I don't know. It was like 8 or 10 miles. So I was doing, I mean, it was, it was less than 10 miles. I want to say it was like 5 to 8. Let's not get crazy. It was like 5 to 8 miles. It was something reasonable. But so I used to go, let's just say I was riding my bike 8 miles each way every day. So it's a 15-mile bike ride. And I was in, I think, probably the best shape since I ran track in college when I was doing that. And I slept like a baby. It was fantastic. But yeah, all of these things. That's why, coming back to the health thing, it's all of these things that we need to do to just be okay in our bodies so that we can let our minds do what they need to do. It's hard. Let's see here. Herman says, nope, take your time, bro. No rush. I will be here. Well, whenever I'm more rested, he said, but just do your work. It's cool however long it'll take. Yeah. It does seem nuts to me to just be working on a cover. See, here's the thing. And even if I was done with this cover, I need to tighten up my outline for the first page for the issue of this comic. It's not even ready for me to start drawing this comic yet anyway. If I were done, I would have to find, like, a lot of the illustrations you guys have seen me work on over the past year or two has been me keeping busy because I wasn't ready to start drawing the comic yet. And I wanted to, like, I was showing stuff like character design and some creature designs and stuff like that. But at a certain point, I was like, look, I need to get this book going. I need to start drawing pages because now it's been going on. It's over 5 years since I finished my previous book. And I'm like, I gotta, like, the urge to just tell stories visually is burning in me. And it's like, I gotta start doing this. I think I'm tempted to put drool on another layer, like drool and spittle and all of that is kind of like a layer effect as opposed to trying to plaster it on. And then end up drawing, erase, because I know myself well enough to know that what I will do is I will draw and erase, draw and erase, draw and erase. And I don't want to do that. I mean, it's not so much the drawing and erasing as it is. It's the fact of getting the drawing part of this creature to where I want, and then end up, inking a bunch of stuff on top of it that I then end up redoing and messing up what are good inks versus just having it on another layer on top that I can go and draw over. Let's see here. Oh, Herman says, I've been watching a lot of David Finch inking, learning a lot. I love David Finch's YouTube channel because what's stunning to me is just so how damn humble he is. Because, I mean, yes, it really, no one wants to be a fan of somebody who's like a cocky, jerk, but he is an amazing artist. And yet he's been doing these things where he'll bring on people that do something that's a little bit different from what he does. Maybe somebody who does watercolor painting, or just working in different mediums. And he'll have like Brian Stelfreeze on, and they'll be like doing painting demos together. And even though he's an amazing artist and is an amazing draftsman, he comes in with like a humble beginner's mindset of just like, I am, because he's doing what I want to do, which is I want to continue to stretch myself. Now he is far more established and has far more craft and drawing and picture making skill than I have. He's built up the skill. He's done the work. But even though he's done all that work, he will still come in and say, all right, now let's try to do something that I have not mastered. And he's very, very humble about it. and very, very open about it. And he's able to reach out to other artists that he knows who are really good at these things that he hasn't done before. And he'll talk to them and get tips from them and work through it. And he'll be open to, like, he shows, he'll show his piece to other guys he knows who know the thing really well. So, what about this? What about that? I'm trying to get this effect. Do you have any tips for that? And it's gratifying to see somebody as experienced as he is continuing to push himself to grow and learn. It's gratifying. It's inspiring. And I would hope that if I ever got to be as good a draftsman as he is, that I would still continue to push myself to grow and learn. So, yeah, I'm not so much, for me. It's like, yeah, I do actually like. What's weird is I like how he inks now. There was a point where he was doing so much detail that I wasn't really necessarily into his work. I knew it was good in terms of like the fundamentals, but I felt like all of the rendering and hatching was a little bit unnecessary. But it seems like he's loosened up on that now and is back to I'm just focused on telling the story. And, regardless, I enjoy watching him and watching him talk about his process. So, and Herman says, I'm sorry to hear about your family health issues, and says, I hope things will change sooner than later. Me too. I appreciate that. And Herman, this is an interesting thing. He says, have you ever used the lasso tool to fill or spot inks or basically nice shapes? It helps cover a lot of things that you need to knock out faster. I have not. And it's not out of a disdain for it, because I've looked at people that do, not necessarily for digital inking, but for colorists who do the cut gradient method, where they will go in with the lasso tool and they'll come in with the lasso tool and then they will lay in. See, that's the thing. Boo on Procreate. I love Procreate, but boo for not having a gradient tool. But what was I going to do? Oh, I was just going to select a brush because I don't have a gradient tool. But they would come in and just see, and even the fact that I have to use a brush to do it, as opposed to just boom, gradient tool and filling a shape. But point being is that I've seen a lot of people do that technique to great effect and color a whole piece. I think maybe it's due to the fact that I gotta deselect that. I think it's due to the fact that I'm such a scribbly artist that I tend to get more satisfaction out of going in here. And, well, what I will do is, if I have a really large area that I want to fill, I will maybe just draw in the shape that I want to fill and paint bucket it. But for some reason, when I'm drawing with the lasso, I have a more challenging time. Like, let's say I'm just going to draw a bird. Let's say a bird's head. I can look at this and I can say, all right, there it is. And I've got the beak. Well, again, it doesn't keep the lines marching or visible the way that that Photoshop does. But I feel like I don't get a sense of shape as well when I draw with the lasso tool. I know that a lot of people do it, and I know that they do it with great skill and great effectiveness. So when I say that I don't do it, I'm saying that I absolutely do not poo-poo the technique. I think it's a very great technique, and it probably would behoove me to do it, but it would probably help speed me up. But I find that I have to balance efficiency with actually trying to do something that I find pleasing. I guess it's one of those things where I was just talking about going outside of my comfort zone. to a certain degree, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I also want to try and find the thing that keeps me motivated to keep moving. Like the process keeps me engaged and I'm enjoying the actual act of doing it. It's very possible that I could sit down, learn the lasso approach, the lasso technique, and develop enough proficiency with it that I'm like, oh, it's just another tool in the box, and I enjoy inking that way. In fact, that actually relates to something that I was thinking about earlier. Separately from the live stream, on my own, I was thinking about the fact that looking at silhouette design. In fact, I was doing that in the art book study group video last week. I went through and just did some silhouettes of illustrations I'd already finished or sketches I'd already finished, studies I'd already done. And I was thinking, oh, I want to go and just do some silhouette studies. So you're right. Absolutely. I think it would help me to think more in shape than in line. Like I'm trying to think in terms of mass, volume, three-dimensional objects, cubes, spheres, and then just trying to color the planes, the shapes of them. But I think that there's absolutely something there in terms of thinking more holistically in terms of, two-dimensional shape. I've been thinking three-dimensionally and not two-dimensionally enough. And I think that getting back into shape and shape design and strong silhouettes could really help me. So yeah, I'm gonna have to mess with that. Oh, and thanks for the reminder. Herman says, I hit your like button also, G. So yeah, if you're on, definitely hit that like button. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. Oh, and Paul, by the way, that was incredibly kind of you to say. He said, oh man, you're going to be a great teacher. You know what? I hope so. Knock on wood. My whole thing is I just don't want to tell anybody anything that's going to mess them up. I'm always thinking, just try to both be helpful and tell people, always telling people that they have to kind of find their own way. So it's more like I want to show people things that have helped me, but never tell people, oh, there's only one way to do it. Or, I like to tell people like I said earlier, there are best practices. There are things that I think will get you to the answers faster than others. But we all still need, to try and leave room for someone else's own individual growth and experience and finding unique ways to handle problems. Paul says, my 3 books, 2010 or 2011, 2014, and 2024. He said, so I guess I'm in no hurry. But yeah, I'm trying to write a better one write better this one, taking more time. Yeah, that's the thing. Trying to figure out how to draw better. It really is just, sit down at the table, do certain exercises, work on new pieces, and just be aware that, you're going to get a little bit better at every day. And just to, there's objective ways to say, yes, this is a good drawing versus a bad drawing. You can kind of like mark your progress. With writing, it's like, even when writing is good, it's hard to tell whether it's good or not, because when you're in the thick of it, everything feels like garbage. And that is the curse of writing. When you're doing it, it all feels like garbage. So I get you there. I mean, I'm in the same place. And we'll see if I can ease up on that and give myself the mental bandwidth to start writing with the same level of relaxation and energy that I draw with. We'll see. We will see. Herman says, gee, do you write your story in one sitting or a couple of days? How much time do you spend without wasting your own time, or does it matter? Oh, wow. Wow. That, I got to throw that back up on the screen and just look at it, because this is absolutely do as I say, not as I do. Because I literally feel as I'm writing right now, I'm doing it wrong. I absolutely like what I feel the right way to do it is the video that I had put up on YouTube on my writing process. But I haven't been sticking with my writing process because I go back and just continually revise and revise and revise. And to a certain degree, like I was talking to someone about how I got to the ending for this comic, like the final issue, how the whole series ends. I came up with the ending that I'm happy with just this year. And I've been writing the story since before I finished Morningstar. Like probably, I think I really started actively writing it probably around honestly, maybe 2015. So it will be about a decade that I've been working on this story, but just in the background, absolutely not full time. And if I had just forced myself to go forward with it, with the story, because I'm like, okay, time to start. I need to, get this book out there. I maybe gotten to the ending and put out an ending that was not what I really want. And maybe I'm trying to make myself feel better about it. But at one point I was talking to a friend and I said, maybe all of the procrastination is so that I didn't put the book out before I had what was the real ending. And maybe that's true. But I mean, there are authors who go back and do like reissued versions of books and add new chapters and change elements. I mean, Stephen King added like 500 pages to the Stand, beyond what was originally published. So there's something to be said there for the idea of, again, still just getting it out there. What I think is best is to write quickly and edit slowly. Meaning, if you've got an idea, get it down in its simplest, broadest strokes. Try to get as much of the story fully formed as possible. I am a big outliner, but I don't want to say it's controversial, but again, it is very, very personal. There are people who feel extremely trapped by the process of outlining, and they really need to just find their way through the story step by step. And honestly, if outlining were so great, I wouldn't be having so much trouble with the book as I have it now. But I have, on multiple occasions, tried to write different comic stories where I just made it up as I went along, and the results were nightmarish. So for me, I am an outliner. And much in the way that I was talking about how I admire David Finch trying new things and experimenting, I am not as opposed to calling it plotting versus pantsing. I like the idea of architect versus gardener. The architect builds, has plans, has blueprints. The gardener plants seeds and sees where they grow. I really like that comparison. Because when people talk about plotting versus pantsing, they almost kind of make it sound like it's like no matter which side you're on, you're being pejorative towards the other. And as you guys know, I don't like to crap on anybody's creative process. So that's me. It's just, again, part of my ongoing thing of not, wanting to say leave things open for other ways of processes. I ramble on that to say that at some point, I probably will try to make up a story as I go along again. And I think it might be that I just need to get confident enough with my writing that I can do that in the same way that you can start a sketch. I really feel like my best work comes when I do thumbnails and rough sketches and workout details. But I will say that I very much can imagine a world where I just start in one corner and just start blocking in and roughing in the figure. Or maybe just I start with the silhouette of the figure and work things out from there. I don't know if I really answered your question, Herman, in terms of how do I write my story in one sitting. What I try to do is I try to write a beginning, middle, and end, a summary of the entire story. Like, let's just say that I was doing Pinocchio. Then for me, I would try to say an old, an old puppet I can't remember if it was a cobbler or whether puppets were all he made. But anyway, an old man with no kids makes a puppet and wishes him to life. The puppet comes to life and wants more than anything to be a real boy. He goes out, has a bunch of wild adventures, experiences crazy stuff, travels through a fantasy land, and learns basically what it's like to be a real boy. He develops the heart of a real boy, only to, get turned into a real boy at the end as a reward for being steadfast and true. And that's a really crappy summary of Pinocchio. But the point is that what I try to do is write down a beginning, a middle, and an end. And usually I try to get a paragraph for each. And that's something that I will try to do in one sitting, is come up with all of that. And when I do that, I am aware that whatever I came up with will probably change. The endings tends to change. The beginnings, the middles, all of these details change as I go through a story. And I want to take a chunk out of this guy's ear. Trying to just look at details to make him a little. See, this is what's interesting is I've tried to move towards kind of an Alex Toth, keeping things simple and not overly detailed. But sometimes that leads to me drawing characters and designing creatures that are almost like they're too flat. There's not enough detail in them. So it's that balance of me looking at them and saying, what's just a little simple flair I can do to add some character to this guy? Like, for instance, just having a chunk ripped out of his ear. That to me, that's some personality there. Yeah. But I'm trying to think if there's a way, Herman, specifically in terms of like the writing process. I definitely prefer to write as much of the story as quickly as possible, which, given that I have a story that's taking me 5 years to do, and mind you, that's 5 years of not sitting down directly and doing nothing but writing. And for all I know, maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. And what I mean by that is when I was writing Morningstar, I sat down, I was not drawing it. I was just writing the story until I was happy with it. And then I started drawing when I was done. Now, what happened was I got to halfway through the series. I got to issue 4. And as I started laying out issue 5, I realized that there were some story things that didn't quite make sense, that I had not really fleshed out. And so I sat down and I realized, part of it was that I was writing, I had the outline for the entire series done, but I didn't have a tight script for each issue. Like, I was writing the script issue by issue, but my outline was already done. And I realized that I really needed to finish the script for the entire thing. I need to script every issue out in order to make all the things that happen in the story line up the way I wanted them to. And in the act of coming to that realization, I stopped drawing for about 2 months and I rewrote the second half of Morningstar. Basically, I rewrote volume 2. It was basically, I had a turn that one of the characters takes that I was like, oh, this turn changes a lot of things. And it was honestly, people talk about that time when you have a character that decides to do something on their own versus just following the track that you laid out for them. And that was the experience I had. And because I had heard of other writers having that experience, I didn't freak out. I just said, all right, well, the story changed now. I need to figure out what it's going to be based on these changes. And in doing that, I sat down and just wrote. And this is getting to what I was trying to say that I was hoping would be helpful, which is just that putting all of my focus and all of my attention onto writing for the time that I was writing really felt like I could tell that I was missing drawing every day. Like emotionally, I was like, oh, I really want to get back to it. I want to draw, but the writing needed it. It needed me to just focus. And then once it was written, I could go back to drawing, and I still edited things. I still changed things over the time because it still probably took me another 4 or 5 years to finish the whole series, to finish those other 4 issues that I hadn't. Yeah, it ended up taking me basically an issue a year. So all of Morningstar took me about 8 years. But I was able to continue to think and edit and change and move stuff around. But there was something about that concentrated, focused effort where I was just writing to get the broad strokes of the story down that really helped. So when you talk about, or when you ask whether I wrote everything all at once, I do recommend writing as much of the story in one sitting as you can. But doing what you can is going to also be different depending on your writing ability, your confidence in your writing, the amount of time you actually have to put towards it, and sometimes just how fully formed the idea springs up in your head. Because I've had lots of ideas that sprung up where it's like, oh, this is a complete graphic novel. All I need to do is just sit down and draw it. And then I've had ideas that are, oh, this sounds super interesting to me, but this is a vague notion, or it's a scene at best. All right. Those lines I just put in there, I wanted to try and create the sense of like flesh, like kind of like seeing the way that with a dog, you can kind of see the inside of their jaw where their lips are pulled back. And I'm going to undo these lines. And I think I'm going to do that fleshy part in color. All right. We are a bit over an hour here, so we're going to wrap things up soon. I realize that I'm looking at the comments now, and I'm only the comment that I'm at right now. So Herman said, you're like J.K. Rowling in comparison to me, even trying to write a short story. Well, that's kind of you to say. Actually, I don't know if that's kind of you to say, because, J.K. Rowling, she made an amazing fantasy world, but she also has become problematic. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. We ain't doing that. Let's see here. What was I going to say? Oh, so Herman said, the problem is that I'm not a writer, and that's an issue. Okay, well, that's fair. I have a way to challenge that idea. And what you can do is you can use drawing to write. And what I mean by that is, let's say you want to do a short story. Number 1, decide your story length. Let's say you're going to do an 8-page story. What you want to do is you want to take out a sheet of paper, and it doesn't matter. As long as you have a notion of what you want your character to be, what you want to do is you want to draw 8 squares for thumbnails on that sheet. And then what you want to do is you don't want to thumbnail the entire page. You want to draw one image for what each page is about. Almost like you're doing thumbnails for story beats. Once you do that, then you're like, all right, I kind of know what my beginning, middle, and end is. But you did it with drawing instead of writing. Once you have that, you can take each one of those story beat sketches and say, all right, based on this sketch, I'm going to break this down into, like, now you will actually go and do page thumbnails. And here's the other thing. When you're writing, you might be, I'll tell you what holds me up is dialogue. So you know what I do? I do dialogue last. I treat it like I'm Stan Lee. Like I need to come up with things for the characters to say based on what I drew. If you think up a good line while you're writing, write it down. But if you can't think of one, just describe the scene, describe what's happening, get that down in the picture. But anyway, you can just take that page of that story beat, and let's say page 3, you've got like a character who's hanging off the side of a cliff. You may now say, all right, how did they get thrown off the cliff in the first place? Who were they fighting? Are they intentionally hanging off the cliff to hide from somebody? You know, what happens? How does that scene resolve? Does the people they're hiding from walk past them and then they pull themselves up? Do they fall and then they land in a tree and then into a river? And based on that, now they have to get out of something else. Do they fall, die, and then go into the underworld? Now the next part of the story is having to escape from hell or Hades or whatever weird afterlife. Wherever your story is going to take you. But the point is that you can use the story sketches as a starting point to just break the story down visually as opposed to like I lean into thumbnails for writing. I lean really, really heavy on the art to make the writing part. In fact, when I'm blocked, that is my number one way to break out of a creative block is I will, instead of trying to force myself to write, I'll say, all right, well, let me just go sketch because I'm having trouble. I can't get past this thing I'm trying to get past. So let me just go and draw for a bit. And I will, and sometimes I'm not even trying to draw my way out of the particular scene. If I'm really focused, then maybe I'll just draw the characters that I'm working on and just sketch. But I try to actually give myself freedom to draw without the purpose of, oh, I need to thumbnail out this scene. Just give myself space to draw for the sake of drawing, but I am working on the characters in the book. I'm drawing just their costume or them, you know, maybe it's just them fighting someone and it just looks cool. But whatever it is, giving myself the space to do that, sometimes that's the main thing you need, is just giving your subconscious a little bit of room to go, let's have some fun. Let's play for a little while. This is supposed to be a good time. You're pushing me too hard. Let's just play. So maybe that will help. I hope that will help. All right. Let me get through we've reached the point where I need to speed through the comments because I'm about 40 minutes behind the comments here. So let's get through this and not get through this. I enjoy spending time hanging out with you, but I'll be here all day. And you know, like I said, life be coming at me. So we got to wrap this shit up. Paul says, Herman, you may not be a writer, so to speak, but do you have a story to tell? I bet you do. Just get it out there, man. You can do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah. Word. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Let's see. Herman says, he says, I'm sure, bro, it's life. We want people to do well. It's just people have their season. It's okay. Yes. Paul says thinking. Don't do that. Let's see here. Herman says to Paul that I appreciate it. My problem is that I'm a perfectionist. You and me both, brother. It's a childhood wound I'm still working on as an adult, so I'm aware of it. But I do hear you also. And Hermit says, me too. Insomniac Junior is my name. Let's see here. Oh, hey. Swordforge in the chat. Sorry it took me so long to get to you. I've been really meandering with the chat and taking my time with questions. But thank you for joining us. And thank you for the comment. They said, hi, meditation is great for thought management. I will double down on that. I will tell you one thing I have been doing is I have been meditating consistently for the past 128 days. And these aren't long meditations. It's just a 12-minute meditation. There's an app that I found online called a Miracle of Mind or Miracle of the Mind. And I've been using that app, and it's a very simple guided meditation. And you can do it for 7 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, or 21 minutes. And then on top of that, they have like additional like meditative, like inspirational thoughts and conversations about the mind and the spirit and karma. They're all very helpful. But yes, I completely agree. Thank you for that comment, Soarforge. Let's see here. Herman says says that's the old man juice kicking in. If it's quiet, I'll start drifting. And he says, is the rack going to have a lot of spotted blacks or texture the way you're doing it now? Well, I mean, you've seen pretty much. I think that this is about how much black he's going to. Well, this is how much black he's going to have. But underneath that, he's going to have very, very dark coloring behind him, this dark blue. So it's going to be, he's going to be very, very dark in the foreground. Pandora's going to be, blue tinted, but a lighter blue. And then they're all going to, both are going to be framed by this orange, the orange tone of the room. So this is basically the color scheme here of how it's going to play out. Let's see here. Yes, and Herman says, yes, Finch is humble. I agree. And Soarforge, again, another question. Is Procreate your go-to program for pages and panels, or where does it fit into your workflow versus Clip Studio? Very good question. I have only used the desktop version of Clip Studio. I have not used it on a tablet. And I think that that's an important distinction because I have not necessarily enjoyed using it for making comics, Clip Studio Paint. I've not really enjoyed that for making comics before. And when I got a tablet, I started using it mostly for doing my layouts, my thumbnails digitally. And I found that I really, really enjoyed the process. Come on, why is this not? Oh, it's because I'm grabbing that instead of doing a color drop like this. At this point, I'm pretty happy with these lines. I think I'm just going to make these lines black. I mean, I could have honestly saved myself a lot of time by just taking the rough sketch, just hue saturationing it all the way to black. That would have been much smarter than all of this shit that I did. But I think I needed to get back into the habit of mark making, particularly because I've been doing a lot of design lately for work. And I feel like I needed to just make marks. In a way, it's like I'm wasting time, but I'm wasting time to kind of get back into my creative flow. The reason why I went on the whole tangent about working in Clip Studio Paint on desktop versus tablet is because I do think that it's worth me trying Clip Studio Paint again and seeing what it's like, drawing on a tablet versus working. Because when I did draw on a desktop computer, I would use a Wacom, but I didn't have a Wacom that had a screen in it. I was using the Bamboo or the Intuos, where you are looking up at the screen while you're drawing just on a tablet stylus surface. And I never really enjoyed that workflow. And I think that it would probably be a completely different experience now drawing with it on the screen like this. I would say that for the most part, it's not so much. I don't have anything against Clip Studio Paint. I just haven't come back and revisited it, and I've fallen into a rather consistent Procreate workflow. But in the end, I really don't think that the tools matter that much because they're all drawing tools. Some have features that are better than others. And I would say that the best feature that Procreate has is the ease of use. It may not be the best drawing program. It's just super, super easy. That's what I like about it. For instance, if you ever used a like I was talking about with a Cintiq, or what they used to be called a Graphire. That was the old school version of the cheapest tablet that Wacom made. But it used to be that all of their tablets would come free with a copy of Painter Classic, which is a very super stripped down version of Painter with way fewer features. And I will tell you that I loved Painter Classic because, Photoshop, even now I'll talk to people and they're like, can you teach me how to use Photoshop? It's kind of overwhelming. There's too many commands. There's so much to do. Painter Classic is very much like Procreate in that it's very, very stripped down, very, very simple. Yeah, I'm pissed off that I don't have a gradient tool, but beyond that, it's so simple. So yeah, Clip Studio Paint currently does not work into my workflow. I still have the desktop version on my computer. I have not signed up for a subscription yet for the tablet version, and someday I will, just to see how I like it. I mean, a lot of people swear by it, and they say that the brush engine is the best brush engine for digital inking, period. So it's worth my time to check it out. But considering the fact that I'm also dragging ass on, rewriting my outline for the comic, I'm like, I've got so many fish to fry that it's more that it's that switching or experimenting with different tools, it just isn't as high a priority at the moment. But yeah, and lots of people use Clip Studio Paint and love it. So that's a fair question. Herman says, wow, use the lasso tool, bro. At least try a piece when you get a chance. And Paul says, hi, Swordforge. I use Clip Studio Paint for making my comics. It makes the workflow faster for me. And Herman says, I have Clip Studio and I don't even use it, but I figure create a comic where I feel comfortable and then import to something like Photoshop or Clip Studio or Clip to refine it to completion. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is how much of your workflow is digital versus traditional. Because some people, for the longest time, part of it was the only thing I was using Clip Studio Paint for was, or not Clip Studio Paint. The only thing I was using Procreate for was color work. Color was for color work and thumbnails, because I would still take my actual, I would still draw my pages traditionally. I would do my thumbnails and I would do my thumbnails. I draw rough layouts on vellum. I would take those, scan them in, enlarge them, turn them to a light blue, like kind of imitating non-repro blue, then print them out on 11x17 Bristol. And then I would ink traditionally on top of my layouts. So for the longest time, it felt like Clip Studio wasn't even necessarily something I needed because I wasn't doing finished art digitally. Now I am. So it again may be very worthwhile me revisiting that whole workflow. Let's see here. I guess that what I was saying is that my previous workflow was a lot similar to Herman's workflow. Let's see here. So Sorgforge says, cool, Paul. It seems like a Cintiq is required for that program to be used properly with all the menu options. Seems like it works best on a monitor than on iPad, which is why I use Procreate now. Well, see, that's the thing. There is a Procreate for the iPad. However, I believe it is a subscription app as opposed to a one-time purchase like Procreate. So yeah, there's that. It's just a matter of whether you want to spend that money on a monthly subscription. Let's see here. Chris is in the chat. Good to see you, Chris. Chris says mass volume. Yes, I'm trying to get a big old chunky guy here. Oh yeah, Paul says. Oh, here we go. Paul says I use it on an iPad, and I can see why you say that. It works on my process. For my process, though, bad thing is $10 a month as opposed to the one-time $10 for Procreate. Yeah. See, so I mean, again, it's just a matter of, does it matter whether you're spending the extra money or not? I think $10 a month for a tool that really helps and works for you is worth it. So it's one of, I can't. I mean, I've said basically, I'm just repeating myself. I think it's worth using, even though I'm not using it. So I can't say that I can endorse it because from personal use, but I know so many people are very, very happy with the results that I think it's perfectly reasonable to try and use. Let's see here. Soreforge said good philosophy, Herman. Herman says trying to be helpful without jacking them up. That's right. Do the noble thing. Yes, back to the teaching thing. And now Dylan is in the chat. Hi, Dylan. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Wow. I need to stop drawing. Just get caught up on the chat and then wrap things up here. I'm putting my stylus down. Stylus down. Okay. Soreforge says, I get why you use Clip, Paul. Seems like it has so much more sophistication, but it's got to be learned. It takes time and investment. I will say, you know what? I will counter this. I think you should just go ahead and get Procreate for the iPad or whatever tablet you have. Or not Procreate, Clip Studio. I think you should get Clip Studio, pay for 1 month subscription, and make something during that month. Maybe just do a couple of sample pages, do some character designs, do it, have fun with it, see if you like it. And then if you don't like it, cancel. You don't need to keep doing it. The thing I'm trying to realize is that you can go around in circles forever. You can go around in circles forever with writing. You can go around in circles with doing exercises. You can go around in circles with revising the same piece over and over again. You can go around in circles with trying to find the right app or tool for the job. If you're interested in Clip Studio Paint, $10 a month isn't that expensive. Go ahead and get it. Get it. Use it for a month. Decide whether you. That's the thing. The main thing is making sure to actually use it. Because a lot of times you'll sign up for a subscription and then you'll just never use it. It just sits there. And now you're just paying month after month for something you're not using. I say you pick a month where you can actually have dedicated time to try it out, decide to try it out, work on some pages or whatever art you want to work on, and then just come to the conclusion where you want to add it to your workflow or not. Because in the end, it's not the tool, it's the artist. So let's see here. Okay. All right. Going through the comments there. And let's see here. Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry you're having a rough day and not feeling well, Herman. But yeah, like you said, you're working through it. That's all we can do. Dylan says, I am hoping to buy a Clip Studio Paint, and I'm hoping to buy Clip Studio Paint and a brush pack from Retro Supply soon. I wonder if Clip Studio, I think they do have sales a couple of times a year for the desktop version. Although, considering the fact that they went subscription with the iPad version, I don't know if the desktop is going subscription as well. So let's see here. Herman says, man, I found so many old sketches in a folder in my house on my servers, OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive. I'm trying to refine all this into one place and eventually copy over to an external drive. I'll tell you on that, I say, again, it's a matter of having the money to drop on it. But if you can get like a 2 terabyte or a 4 terabyte drive and then just throw everything in there at once, then you could just be like, all right, I will sort this out when I have time. So it's crazy. Soreforge says, Dylan, you can get Clip Studio Pro, Clip Studio Paint free for 3 months right now. No commitments. There we go. Do it. Let's see here. Herman says, man, Alex Toth, the book I got of his is amazing, but a lot of his storyboards, the Super Friends, was really detailed. Yeah, it's interesting. I packed up a bunch of my books. I packed up all of my books. I don't have the Genius series where it's a Genius animated, Genius inspired. I forget what the other one. But there's those 3 art books on Alex Toth. But what I do have is I have the artist edition of Bravo for Adventure. So it's like a large, like full page size of Alex Toth comic art. I have this really great book called by John Hitchcock called the Alex Toth Doodle Book. And what it is John Hitchcock was an artist, and I think he started by working at a comic shop, but he started a correspondence with Alex Toth. He was like writing letters back and forth. And Alex Toth would always illustrate his letters because he was always talking about the artistic process. That's a lot of what they talked about, was the creative process and the challenges and working through it. And basically, he published a book of the letters between him and Alex Toth. And they're amazingly illustrated, and it's very great personal insight into him as a person. I think the other thing I have is there's plenty of examples of Alex Toth's work in the Hanna-Barbera Animation Treasury book. So it's like an art book, like an art of, basically it's the art of Hanna-Barbera animation. So it has storyboards from a wide variety of shows that Hanna-Barbera did over the years, a wide variety of character designs, color studies. It's a great book. Just for if you're interested in the creative process in general or animation in specific, it's an excellent book. So that's kind of all the Toth stuff that I do have. I want to get the Genius books, but I've forced myself to stop buying so many books because it's just, my studio is so full. It looks empty right now, but that's because we have a bunch of stuff in storage because we're going to be moving. But like, we got books up to the gills, and I love the books. I don't want to let any of them go. And I've still had to get rid of so many books just to prepare for the move. And it's heartbreaking. An artist getting rid of books is like an artist getting rid of fingers. It's fucking hard. All right. Enough of that. Herman says, gee, your designs would look amazing as character models for 3D games. Nice. That is a high compliment. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, hell, if Riot needs a hand, I'll jump in the ring. Put me in, coach. Let's see here. He says, 8 years is a lot of time, my guy, to work on stuff. Well, 8 years is a lot of time to work on stuff. But think about this. If you break it down, I was only doing 1 issue a year. The most productive year I had the entire time I was doing Morningstar, I did 2 issues a year. The only reason why it still breaks down to 8 years is because there was also, there was later issues that took longer than a year. But if you draw 1 comic book a year, now mind you, you're writing it, penciling, inking, and gray tones because it was black and white, not color, plus the cover. Even if you're drawing 124, I didn't do 22 pages, I did 24-page comics. If you're doing one 24-page comic, if you complete one page every 2 weeks, that's already, instead of 24, that's 48. So that's 48 weeks if you're doing a page every other week. So first off, ask yourself how long it takes. Like, yes, a comic artist, professional comic artist, should be able to do at least one page a day to stay on schedule. But if you're doing indie on your own, maybe you're lucky if you can get 1 or 2 pages a week done around your day job. So let's say that life is coming at you and you don't have time, and work is busy and family's busy. Then if you look at it from the standpoint of, I have time to draw 1 page of comic books every other week, or to complete over the course of 2 weeks, then yeah, that's about, that's all 48 weeks. That gives you a month where you're not working on the comic. So that's basically a year right there. So if you ask yourself, if you had to sit down and do a comic page right now, with your current work schedule, your current day schedule, and I'm not saying this like I'm trying to defend how long it took me. I'm saying, let's look at it realistically. You're busy. You're busy as all hell. How many pages do you think you can crank out over the course of a year? Because if you can crank out, enough to get 1 issue done a year, then, in 4 years, you've got a 4-issue miniseries. I mean, hell, you can collect 2 issues into a trade, a 48-page one-shot. So in 2 years, you've got a one-shot that you put on shelf. In 4 years, you've got 2 one-shots. In 6 years, you've got 3 one-shots. So, it's just a matter of, this is why trying to make a little bit of progress every day or every week is important. It's because comic books aren't made in one big lump. You have to fight and claw for every page and every panel. When I was working in-house doing design work, my lunches would be spent working on comics. And a lot of times it'd be like, I'd sit down, I have 1 hour to work on this comic. And like you've seen, this is what I've done in 1 hour. I already had the first figure done. And all I did was basically I could have just recolored. I could have very easily just hue saturationed this creature to black, but I wanted to go in and mess with the line work and kind of try to get my mojo back. The point being is that a lot of times I would sit down and say, all right, I have time to ink 1 or 2 panels. And that's what I did for an hour. I just 1 or 2 panels. But if I ink 1 or 2 panels a day during my lunch break at work, and I'm at work 5 days a week, all right, 1 or 2 panels. So unless it's a very complicated page, fact of the matter is by halfway through the week, I've finished inking 1 page and starting the next page. So I'm already in a week's time, I've gone through 1 page. Now, that breakdown of how long it takes to finish an entire page, I would go through and ink I would thumbnail an entire issue. Then I would do layouts for the entire issue. Then I would ink the entire issue. Then I would gray tone the entire issue. Well, I would also letter the issue. But the point being is that I would do all these things in one chunk, as opposed to take a single comic book page, pencil, ink, gray tone, and letter that page, then move on to the next page to complete it. It's different. And I can't say which workflow is better or worse, depending on the person. So you got to do what works for you. Okay. All right. I'm glad that you said it's Paul said, not sure if I shared, Dylan. I'm going to have brain surgery in November. You said it sounds way more serious than it is, but my creative life feels like it's on hold till then. Well, hey, you are in my well wishes and my heart. I am glad that it is not as serious as it sounds. I hope that it's just something to help alleviate ongoing conditions and keep your health, make you able to continue to maintain your health. Wow. I hope it gives you a bunch of funny stories that you can make other people feel really awkward about. That is what I hope you come away with, is great stories. So the kind of stuff that'll make people go, wow, damn, Paul been through some shit. Yeah, you see here. And Paul says, everyone also is, Dylan said he wish you shared it on one of your live streams. We're all hoping that it goes well. Paul, you're so dark. I'm not even gonna put that on I'm not even gonna put the comment you had after he said, thanks, you should make me better in every way. I'm not even gonna put the next comment out. I'm not gonna put that up. But you're dark. I'm glad you have a sense of humor about it. Herman says, I think I will try the Stan Lee way. That was crazy, the way he would just make up a story based on what he saw Kirby draw. I was thinking they had to communicate enough to make it make sense. My understanding is that they would talk on the phone together and work out the plot, and then Kirby would go away and draw what he remembered based on the conversation. So I don't think it was him completely making it all up. It was him making a lot up, but he was definitely like, they did discuss a direction, but then they would just go and see where it would evolve from there. Paul says, I'm hoping to work on my next book after that, but I also realize life doesn't always agree with your plans, just taking it as it comes. You know what? And that is all you can do. That's a very healthy attitude. There's no sense to make yourself crazy about it. Have fun, spend time with your family, make art that makes your life joyous. That's all you can do, and as long as you're doing that, that's a good life. Herman says, Stan and Kirby had fluid osmosis. They wrote or did hundreds of books, 50 years worth. Now, maybe 50 years worth, but I don't know if they worked I don't know how many years they were actually working together, because I know Kirby didn't even create the Fantastic Four or work on the Fantastic Four until so I think he was 40. So he'd been doing a bunch of comics even before that. I don't know. I'll tell you that there's so much in terms of comic history that I enjoy listening to, like podcasts. Like Word Balloon has a lot of old timers that come back and tell great stories about the history of comics. One of my favorite things is Will Eisner has a book called Shop Talk. He interviews guys like Gil Kane, Neil Adams, Kirby, Will Eisner. Eisner is his book, but the book, he recorded the interviews for that book. And there's a Will Eisner documentary DVD that I bought a while back. And the bonus features on the DVD are the audio of those interviews. So it's like literally you get to hear like an hour-long interview, Will Eisner interviewing Jack Kirby, interviewing, Gil Kane, interviewing Milton Caniff. And it's just like, God, that book, that DVD is worth its weight in gold just for the audio interviews from Shop Talk. So, point being is I like hearing those stories. Let's see here. Dylan said, congratulations on that, Jeremy. I've gotten out of the loop of meditation once a week. He says it looks sick. This piece looks sick as hell with those colors. I am glad to hear it. This is the reason why I do the color thumbnails, is so that hopefully I can... Trying to figure it out on the fly is so much harder for me. And I really like the idea of just in a small thumbnail format, working out those color details. Let's see here. Chris says, so drawing characters that other artists have drawn doesn't get us further ahead. I wouldn't say that. I think there's lots of people who have gotten a career, gotten hired, maybe not necessarily at Marvel and DC, but gotten hired at video game companies because they did really amazing fan art of establishing IP. I think it's probably better with video game characters more than comic book characters. But what I think is if you make artwork that's compelling, whether it's based on a comic book, a video game, a popular TV show, or popular characters in books, whatever. If you do compelling artwork based on that, it can get attention. And if you have a unique voice, then people can look at that and they say, hey, we want you to do that, but for our characters. So I don't hate on fan art. I don't do a lot of it, but that's because I have a bunch of ideas already that I'd rather work on. But I absolutely do not hate on fan art. And I do think that if you do good fan art, if it's not just you just hacking out just something that looks very much like every other version of that same character, I don't think it really helps. But if you can bring a unique voice to it, if you can bring some part of yourself to the work, then yeah, fan art can lead to paying opportunities or, just selling sketches of fan art. I'm one of those people who I know people do make prints of IP they don't own and sell that. And it's more of they're getting away with it. It's not that it's not legal. They're just not getting busted for it. I started doing sketch cards. I need to get back to it. Like I was doing sketch cards of like Batman, Daredevil, Wonder Woman, Wolverine. I think for me, I have no qualms with selling original art that is that's fan art. But I just don't make reproductions of fan art because I feel like that's just it's a bridge too far in terms of the legality of it. I feel like, because if someone commissions you to do a piece of fan art, I don't think that that's something that anyone's going to really, if you're not doing mass reproductions of it, I don't think anyone really gives a shit. So I say that to say, Chris, if you want to draw fan art and draw other characters, draw them, have fun, post them on the internet. And if you want to draw into like physical art pieces that you want to sell people, or take commissions for fan art, then hell, I mean, you can probably start a business doing people's original characters or doing for their Dungeons and Dragons campaigns or what have you, their own fantasy characters or role-playing characters by showing examples of really great fan art. So yeah, do it. Let's see here. Herman said, yes, it does, Dylan. Jeremy can throw, the piece I did. Jeremy can throw it down when he wants to. It's cool. You guys are too nice. You are too kind. I appreciate it. God, I really got to get to the end of this here because we've been going almost 2 hours now. Let's see here. Dylan says, I decided to buy a new Picasso tab because that's a bit more expensive than the previous one. I'm going to learn Clip Studio Paint and Krita, the Canva alternative on it. I've heard good things about Krita. I haven't used it, but I've heard good things from people. And Herman says, who has the rights to Rom? I used to love Marvel Comics character, but I think they don't have the rights. Would love to see him in a Marvel movie. I don't know who has the rights, but I think that IDW is reprinting, if not Rom, they're reprinting Micronauts. But I think that IDW has licensed stuff from Marvel in the past. So I don't know if that's something where they own the rights so much as they are paying for the license. Sadly, I actually never read Rom. I don't think I've ever read an issue of Rom. It's not that I'm hating on it. It's just it never came up. I know it being around. I definitely saw the covers. What's weird is for some reason I jumped onto Silver Surfer in the 90s. And Silver Surfer seems like he and Silver Surfer versus Rom the Space Knight. They're both these shiny metallic looking dudes. They seem like they're kind of in the same vein. But Dylan says that's the second or third time Rom has popped up for me this week. I guess you're having a Rom week. All right, man. Let's see here. Let's see. Herman says, word. He said, I had a comic when I was younger and always loved and always loved. He was designed and they drew him. I wanted to make an animated short of the character, maybe do a mix of 2D, 3D animation. He said, I'm still trying to understand 3D sometime. Yeah, I mean, for me, the only way I'm going to jump into 3D is if I'm getting paid to do it, because it's just so much to learn with traditional. Or remember this way, it's not that I have to be getting paid to do it. It's that I would probably learn it for a job. But if I'm just learning it just for my own, I probably would not, because I'm more interested in drawing than I am 3D. But I'm also interested in eating more than only knowing traditional or two-dimensional illustration. So if it opened up work opportunities. And that's the thing, animation has a lot going on right now in the animation industry. So I don't know if jumping into 3D for that would be necessarily the thing. Jumping into it for product design, that kind of makes sense. Let's see here. Chris also says, I have an old ROM comic. And Herman said, you are the man for that, Chris. ROM is hard as fuck. He says he would be great to see in a live action movie. I just knew he was going to show up in Guardians of the Galaxy, especially with James Gunn doing it. Was ROM in Guardians of the Galaxy? I don't remember that. Well, hell, I'm gonna have to go do a quick research. All right. Let's see here. Last couple of comments. Let's see. Yeah, Dylan says he found a book on retro supply called Cartoon Modern. It's about the art of the 50s. It's expensive and rare, but I found a free PDF on Substack. So if you can get one comic printed available in a year, then you're in the top percent of artists that actually have finished their comic, let alone started it. Calling myself out here. Well, you know what, Dylan? Start a page. Start doing it. That's the main thing. You just gotta start and then do a little bit every day. The comic. This is the biggest thing you got to remember. The comic ain't gonna draw itself. Number one thing, you got to tell yourself that every day. In fact, I need to put that on my wall. When I move to my new studio, the first thing that's going up on the wall is a sign that says the comic ain't gonna draw itself. Amar! Hey, ain't seen you in a hot minute, man. He said, how's the comic coming along? Well, the cover is coming along quite well. I mean, I've already worked out the colors, the color thumbnail a while ago. So I'm just sort of inking along on this. And we've just been jawing for like, well over an hour here. So I'm actually literally just getting ready to wrap things up. Herman says, no, Ron wasn't in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the problem. That's the thing. I was about to say, did I miss something? All right. Yeah, that would have been cool. But yeah, they've got enough problems with the rights for the comic character as it is, because I think it's somehow tied to Micronauts. So yeah, they're not going to be throwing characters that they can't own lock, stock, and barrel into a Disney movie. All right, guys, we got to wrap it up here. We got to pack it in. But again, yeah, hit that like button. If there's anybody that you think would enjoy these kind of art conversations, these rambling diatribes on while working on illustrations and comics, forward it to them. If you're somebody new and you happen to pop by, please subscribe and join us. We try to do this every Sunday, most Sundays. Again, there's going to be some dips in regularity over the next month while I finalize preparation for my move. But yeah, definitely all of that. Like, subscribe, comment. Yeah, definitely comment. If you guys see this stuff and there's things that I don't, cover in the stream and the chat, you're like, hey, I just thought of this. Leave comments. I'll talk about those things. I'll reply to them, or I'll bring them up on another live stream. And meanwhile, if you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, get signed up for my free newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or free digitally on Kindle, Amazon.jeremy.net is broken right now. I have been trying to get it fixed. I'm going to go back to trying to get it fixed when I'm done with this live stream. In the meantime, if you just go to Amazon and just type in GERIMI, I will come up. My comics will come up. You can purchase physical copies of them there. And hopefully I can get this fixed. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the time, all the comments, the fact that we can hang out and have such fun conversations that I just stop drawing and just hang out talking with you in the chat is it's humbling and gratifying. I enjoy spending time with you guys. I enjoy you guys showing up here with me, and I enjoy showing up for you guys. That's it for now. Go be creative.